friends, it's Kelly here with Kelly Crafts It All. So what am I bringing to you today? Well, today I think I'm going to bring you a scrapbook tutorial. People have been asking for them, and I said, you know what, I'm going to do one. And this one's pretty simple. I'm going to show you kind of like a prototype type one. Now this isn't exactly what we're making, but it's very similar. So this one's done in Christmas. Doesn't have to be Christmas, you do whatever you want. So this is the cover. And I'm not going to tell you the measurements on this one because the measurements we're doing are different. But it's going to be similar to this, except I'm going to change this up a little bit. These are going to get doubled because if you do them single, they warp. Now, I got the inspiration from Polypalooza. And she did a December daily that looked like this. And she didn't have the double notch, and I don't like that. So I'm going to make this solid. And she did a December daily, and I'm not really sure what to do with them. So I said, well, I'll just up the ante, and I'll make a scrapbook out of it. So it'll have approximately 4 pages, and they're all the same. I just did a little tuck spot. I will show you where you can get these, and then there's this little, just a little folder. Now you can decorate the insides of these. You can get as fancy as you want. This was kind of like a prototype just to give myself an idea of what I wanted to do. So like I said, all the pages are the same, except different papers. And there's 4 of those, and then there's 2 pockets on the back. Okay? And then it's just, you know, just a simple piece of styrofoam. And it's just simple. Just simple. But you can make it, you make it your own. You know, I'm just going to give you the inspiration and you run with it, okay? So let's get started. So we're going to start on our covers first. And what you're going to need is 2 pieces of chipboard or cardboard or whatever, you know, cereal boxes doubled up. Just make some chipboard or some heavy board. And you're going to need 2 pieces that are 5 3/4 tall by 6 3/4 wide. You'll need 2 of those. And then you're going to need 1 spine that measures 2 1/2 wide by 5 3/4 tall. Okay? Now people ask me how do I cut my chipboard, and I'm going to show you here. This is my old trimmer. And I was going through these blades, even just for paper, like wildfire, and they were expensive. But the Fisker ones that use the rotary cutters, oh, excuse my arm, I'm going to grab one, use these, will last me forever. I mean, I've had this the trimmer for probably, I don't know, 2 years. And I think I've changed the blade in it maybe once, twice, maybe twice. And actually, it wasn't even my blade that was dull. Let me show you my trimmer. Don't mind this goopy stuff right here. When I have to trim little teeny tiny pieces of paper, I put a little piece of double stick tape right there and it holds it. But anyhow, this is the trimmer I have. And it has this that comes out. And I took it out and I flipped it over and my blade was fine. It was cutting just, you know, my paper real smooth. So a lot of times it's not even my blade, it's this track. It makes a mark in it, and sometimes it gets real, a lot of fuzzies, or it gets a lot of paper fuzz in it. And sometimes if you clean that, just clean that out, and your blade's great. But these, I was going through them like mad. So, most of my blades, these kind, I'll just put a big black X on them, and then I know they're for my chipboard. And I use this one mainly for chipboard anyway. So depending on what, you know, what size you're cutting, it doesn't, you know, matter. So if we, you know, we need to cut 2 1/2 inches, I'm going to measure in 2 1/2 inches, and I'm going to cut. Now this is not going to cut all the way through, but it'll cut enough. Now I like to bend mine, and you can stick this right back in your cutter and put it right back at 2 1/2 and line that wire up with the previous cut line and cut it, and it'll cut. Or if you don't like to do that, sometimes what I'll do is measure 2 and I'll cut and I'll get a bend, and then I'll just take my scissors and I'll lay them in there kind of at an angle, and you can feel it, and it'll cut real easy. You can cut it like that, or you can cut it at whatever size you need. You can get a cutting mat and a blade, and the blade will lay right in that track, and you can just lay that blade in there and just give it a cut, and it'll cut. So that is how I cut my chipboard. Okay, so let's begin on our album here. So we've got our covers and we've got our spine. So you cut those out, set them aside for a minute. You're going to need your covering for your book, what we're going to wrap our chipboard in. Now you can use plain and then come back with your designer paper and cover it, or you can cover it in your designer's paper. That's all up to you and how you like to do yours. Now I've got this cut at 7 3/8 inches tall, but the length I'm not quite sure yet till I get my chipboard laid. So I'm going to lay this out like this. And I'm going to find the glue, or if you want to use double-sided tape, go ahead. I am out of double-sided tape at the moment, and I've got some ordered, but it's not here. But I really kind of like wet glue better. I use more wet glue than I do double-sided tape. And then I'm just going to, I like to take the edge of the other one and kind of slide it in that glue. And I like to overlap mine about a, a ½ inch. I don't want my spine to pop apart. You wipe up any glue that you have oozing out. And if you have a hard time laying them straight, if you take your scoreboard and you lay it one in here like this, and you lay your other one in there. My glue is, now it's dried now, but if you lay it in there like that, it'll line up pretty straight for you. And I've been doing albums for so long that I just eyeball it and it lays pretty straight. So, plus I'm not that worried about if it's not exactly straight. So that's why I said I don't know how long it's going to be. So now I'm going to get my spine. That's 2½ by 5 3/4. And I'm going to glue that down. And I'm going to lay that right in, in the middle, but my seam is right here. So I like to have my seam in the middle of my chipboard, but if I lay this smack dab in the middle, it's not going to be there. It's going to be way over here. So I just eyeball it about where I want where it is, and I'll just kind of put my finger there. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact or perfect. And then I'm just going to center that up like that, because I'm going to cover this anyway with some designer paper. I like to flip mine over and give it a good rub, good burnish. Now, for me, I don't have the Teflon bone folder, and when I use my plastic one, it leaves shiny marks. So I just like to use my hand and burnish that down. Now we're going to get out our covers, the 5 3/4 by 6 3/4 covers. And you're going to make sure they match up with your spine. Now, when I leave a gap, I leave a gap. Most people say double the width of your chipboard. If you get 2 pieces of chipboard and you butt them up against each other, and you place that there, and you put this here, and not pushing it real tight, but just leaning it up against it, that's what they consider their gap. I like to do 3 times the width of my chipboard. So I'll put 3 pieces together and lay it in there. So I have quite a big gap. So if you wanted to even measure that, I'm going probably about 3/16 of an inch to almost 1/4 of an inch. Because you got to figure all this paper you're trying to cram into this little gap. I like to have just a bit bigger of a gap. So, like I said, if I measured that, it's probably about almost 1/4 of an inch. Just shy of it. Get my glue. And if you want to use your double-sided tape, you can do that too. And I'm going to lay that down, and I'm going to leave myself a pretty good gap. If you want to, measure yours, you can. I'm just going to lay my ruler down there. If you lay a ruler down like on top of your spine, then you can get that to line up. I usually use black, but black cardstock is hard to find, and the price has gone up on it terribly. But I can find white cardstock all day long. So, I'll do this one in white. And then that's one side, now I get your other side. Do the same thing. And then we're going to do the same identical thing. We're going to lay this on here, leaving that big gap. About a 1/4 inch gap. Like I said, I like to leave mine gappy. That's up to you. And Oliver's in here, and he is having a fit, and I don't know what he wants me to do for him. We've played, he's 8, and he's just not happy with himself at the moment. I'm just gonna let that catch a minute, put this over. He's been outside, and he keeps wanting to go outside, and then he wants to come right back in. And he'll whine to go out, and then whine to come back in. So, he's just having an off day. Normally, he lays down in here right beside me and just minds his own business. Today, he's being a little fussy, aren't ya? Are you being fussy? This thing I 3D printed, and it's just a little, I don't even know how big it is, guys. Just 2 inches by 2 inches, and it's made out of PLA, and this doesn't shine as bad as the bone folder. And I cover more surface area with it, and I 3D printed it. So we have that. Now this is why I said I don't know how long it is, so, I'm going to come in here and measure I use about 3/4 of an inch from the edges. So we'll say about 3/4 of an inch. Doesn't have to be exact, guys. Doesn't have to be exact. And we're going to find some scissors, which I do not know where my scissors have disappeared to. Well, I'll just do it the easy way, and I will. You can use scissors to cut yours. You don't have to do it this way. Just that I don't know where I set mine at the moment. They're probably up under here somewhere. I'm just turning around, just trimming this off. Like I said, it doesn't have to be exact, doesn't have to be perfectly straight. It'll be good. Okay, now we're going to cut the corners. Now usually I use a corner cutter, and most people have them, but I don't have one right now. I don't know what I did with it. It's laying around here somewhere. I think I put it in a drawer, or I accidentally sent it in a swap. I don't know where it went. But what you're going to do is you're going to want to leave a 1/8 inch gap from the corner of your chipboard to your paper. Around. You know, don't cut too close. You can always cut more off, but you can't add it back on, okay? So, I just like to, you know, have that 1/8, and then if you want to take your ruler and kind of make a triangle and do that's usually the old school way is how I did it. So I'll just make a mark where about I want to cut. And that's how I do that. Okay, so now you can get your scissors out and trim these if you want, or if you want to put your tape on first, you can. I'm using glue, so I'm going to go ahead and cut one off. Just cutting on them lines, round about. Okay, now hold on to your corners for just a second, because if you did kind of cut yourself a little short, you could take these little corners and you can stick them up here and glue it down, and then that little gap, if you have any kind of a gap where it didn't meet, won't show as bad. Okay, so we're this far, so let's do that. Let's see. Okay, sorry about that. Oliver was just carrying on, so oh, I had to go let him outside. He was driving me crazy. And I had to find my wedding rings. I was feeling naked. I was like, why do I feel bare up here when I'm looking down? Because I forgot to put my wedding rings back on. I like to make bath bombs and things, and they use baking soda, and it's very abrasive. So when I'm mixing it with my hands and stuff, I take my rings off in that. Well, plus then when I put gloves on, because I always wear gloves. But when I'm putting the gloves on, my ring will snag the inside of that and poke a hole. So, yeah, I said, gonna have to do something about that. My glue is oozing everywhere. Grab a towel here and wipe that off so it doesn't drip onto my book. Okay. Alright, back to where we were. Okay, so we have this. Now what you're going to need is, I use Tyvek. You don't have to, but I like to. Now I don't cover my whole album in it, but what I do use is 2 small pieces. And Tyvek is the envelopes that come from the post office. Now I have a used one that somebody had sent me some mail in, and I'm using those. Please don't go to the post office and get a new one and cut it up. It's actually illegal for you to do that. It needs to be an old one, or you can buy some Tyvek on Amazon and whatnot. But this was one that somebody had sent me in the mail, and I've been using it, and it's lasted me for a long time. So you need a piece that measures 1 inch by 5 3/4, and you'll need 2 of those. Okay, now if you want to put double-sided tape on here, you are more than welcome to. Sometimes I do, but here lately I have just been gluing it on. And you don't need a whole lot of glue. You don't want to slip around. So, and I just, on where the creases are, I just eyeball half of that Tyvek. And I lay that up there top to bottom. Now, if you want to get your bone folder and give it a good burnish, that's a good idea. Make sure you work out any air bubbles. I'm going to do that on the same side. And don't worry if you have an old envelope from the post office. Don't worry about the writing or anything on it. It's not going to show. I'm going to do the same thing, just eyeball center of that Tyvek and glue that down. If you have any hanging over, you can trim it off with some scissors. Then the next thing you're going to need is 2 pieces that measure 2 by 5 3/4, and you're going to score at 1 inch. So we're going to cut that to that, and then you're going to get your scoreboard out, lay that in there, and we're going to score that at 1 inch. I'm going to do that on both of them. Okay. And then you can, fold these if you need to. Like I said, you can use double-sided tape, you can use wet glue, whatever makes you happy. So now we have that, and we have our book. What I like to do is take 1/2 of it, add a little glue to it, or a lot of glue, whatever, and I bend mine up at a 90-degree angle, and I line that up to the top and the bottom, thereabouts, and I put that up against there. Helps to put the right side down. I've got my glue on the bottom, and I'm going to line that up in there, and I'm going to line it up against that crease. And then I'm going to put some glue on this side. I'm just going to push it over and glue it down. I'm going to do the same. I'm just going to turn my book around because it's easier for me. And right now my book is the same everywhere, so it doesn't really have a front and a back quite yet. I'm going to do the same thing, lay that kind of at a 90-degree angle and push that up in there. Like I said, I'm using wet glue, so mine's taking a minute to catch and to do its thing. And I'm not worried if it doesn't match exactly down here or if it's sticking out. It's not a big deal because it's going to get covered here in a second. I need a little bit more glue under this tie back here. I'm just using a towel to make sure I got all my oozy glue out, and I'm going to glue that like that. And we have our covers going here. I'm going to move these notes out of the way so they're not confusing someone. Okay, now we're going to wrap our cover. So what I like to do is I take my bone folder or even your stylus on the fat end, not that skinny end, the fat end. And I'll run it along that chipboard, just gently. You don't have to gouge into it, just do it very gently. Just break them fibers down until that paper, I want you to bend this way. I was checking to make sure I was recording. My phone has a habit of shutting itself off. I was recording what I got from my swap partner, and I got like 3 minutes into it. Boom, it shut off, and I got almost all the way through my swap before I realized that it had stopped recording. Okay, now I like to do my long edges first. There's no preference, it's just a personal thing. And I even like to take my bone folder and run it along that edge and push that paper up against there. This makes a crisper line. Oops. And things like that happen. Don't fret over it. That's not a big deal. We will be covering that up. So there. We'll learn by my mistakes, okay? Don't push so hard. I got a little... Well, I had my bone folder turned the wrong way for one. I usually use this back side, and I was using that curved side, and it slipped. But just do it gentle. Don't get real hairy with it. Okay. Now I'm going to put my glue down, or your tape. If you're going to tape, I'd put some on this edge here, and then some along this edge here, and tape it down. I'd show you, but like I said, I don't have any tape. If you're going to glue, if you run that glue down in that gap right there, it will soften the fibers of your paper and help it to bend easier. Now I'm just going to start from the center, and I'm just working my way out and just rubbing it down until my glue decides to catch. And then I'll work this side. And I'm going to try to fix my tear here. Work that down first. And you can get your bone folder out and use it too. I got plenty of glue that's oozing out. I know that side's stuck down. Now I have a little teeny weeny piece here. I'm gonna shoot a little glue under there. And I'm gonna try to match that up as good as I can. I'm not overly concerned because I'm gonna cover that anyway with my designer paper. I wish I would have tore just a little bit lower, but there we go. I'm going to do the same thing on the other long side. I'm going to run that glue down that alongside that chipboard. And if you need to, you could spread your glue out with your finger even, and then maybe it won't ooze out so much. Alright, we are almost done with the covers here. Okay, yeah, my hands are all sticky. Okay, so, you know, it doesn't matter which side is what yet. We're still debating. Now, see, you have these little tab things up here. I have to push those in. Match them down, those little ears. I'm going to do the same here. Just to make sure. And if that ear's got a gap, stick some glue up under it. Whoop. I use the reptile glue, and it got low, so I added a little bit of that Lean's quick dry glue to it. So actually it works really well. And it saves me a little cash because I can cut it with that Lean's glue, and it, but I'm telling you, when I mix the two together, less is more. The more I use, the slipperier it is. So I'm trying not to use so much. All right. There we are. We have the cover of our album. Now if you get, I have this little tiny thing poking out. And if you don't like it, you can just kind of try to push it in a little bit, but mine's not going. If I would have caught it in time, I could have lifted this paper up and pushed it up, but, you know, nobody's going to be any of the weather. I'm going to be looking at that and go, oh my goodness, look at those edges. They're not exactly perfect. Okay, so now that I've got that all done, this is where I'll leave my book just flat like this and go over it a couple of times. Make sure everything's burnished down real good. And I don't do anything. I just pick this up, set it aside to dry. So while we're waiting for that to dry, we'll work on our hinge system. So you're going to need your scoreboard. And you're going to need a piece of cardstock that measures 5.5 by 9.5, and then cut 1/16 inch off the edge. Or you can cut this at 5 7/16 by 9.5. So usually what I do is I'll lay it in here, I'll measure half of it, 5.5, and then I'll come back 1/2 notch there and put a little tick mark and cut it in my trimmer. So we're actually 5 7/8 by 9.5. And we're going to lay this on the scoreboard at the 9.5. And I'm going to start scoring at 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5 1/2, 6, 6 1/2, 7, 7 1/2, and 8. Okay. Now, if you need to keep yourself in check, what you can do is I like to take a pencil, and I'll put mine, where I can either erase it, or if I'm going to decorate the inside of my gussets, it'll be covered by the cover it. But I want a 1/2 inch gap between my cover when it folds up. So this is the book. I want a 1/2 inch gap between. So I put a little there. That means my gusset. Or you can put a G or an X, and then I hit 1, 1 gap, 2, 2 gap, 3, 3 gap, 4 and 4 and a gap. So your numbers are going to go together. So 1 and 1 will go together. So you're going to fold that on that score line between the ones, and that is going to be 1 hinge. So when if you pinch on that and push it down, and you do this, you'll see you'll have a gusset and a gusset. Okay? Do the same thing. 2 and 2 go together. Pinch it. Push it down. 3 and 3. Pinch it. Push it down. 4 and 4. And then push it down. So now wherever I have a valley, that's where I'm going to put my glue or double-sided tape. Whatever you want to use. Like I said, I'm out of double-sided tape, so I'm going the glue route. And I'm just going to match them back up. I'm on 4, so 4 and 4. Give it a good squish. If you want to lay, you can now, when you've got them pushed together, you can roll that over to the side. And really push it and make sure that everything is even. Now we can go to 3 or 2, whatever you're on. It doesn't matter which end you start at. Just match your numbers up. some glue on that. I'm on number 2 now. I hope I'm explaining this to you guys. There's so many tutorials on hinges that, you know, I just have done it so long that I do it and it's hard to even explain. Some glue here, but if you're going to do double-sided tape, you'd put your strip of tape, you know, where I'm putting my glue, you put a strip of tape. This is why I kind of like working in black better. It doesn't show if you get the dirt mark on it, but it's going to be okay because we're going to cover these up anyway. And that's your hinge system. Okay? So your pages are going to go on here, and then this is your gussets to allow room for your pages to move back and forth and for you to add your decorations. Okay, you should have 2 score lines here that we didn't fold on. You want to fold those up towards the hinges. And make sure you get them down there and they're square. And same thing for this one. If you need to move your fins out of your I just call them fins, but they're your page, your hinges, you can. And come in here and do this to make sure I've got that all squared up. Like so, okay? And now I like to take these pages, my bone folder, and I like to work them one way, and I like to fold them back and work on the other way. And I just like to work them back and forth a little bit till they're fluid. You can run your fingers over them and they move. You're not doing that. Okay, that is that part. So now we have our lovely book over here. It should be dry. And you have you'll see your creases right here. Your crease where you put the book. And when you push it up, you can use your bone folder, but please do it very, very gently. I even like to use this big fat end and just very, very gently push that paper. And you'll see it sink down in there. And then you can bring it up. Okay? If you have anything gapping, if you're using glue like I am, I'll just get a scrap piece of paper, put a little glue on the corner, tuck it up in there. I got more glue on the back of it instead of the corner, and I'll run that up underneath there. And I'll use my bone folder to push that down. And make sure I've got that good and down, okay? And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Just going to very gently, I'm just barely touching it. And I'm going to fold it up. And there is your album cover. Now, at this point, you can, if there's really, see, that's not directly in the center, and I'm not worried about it. It's going to be fine. So we've got our cover made. Okay, now we can open that back up and we can get our hinge system. And what's going to happen is where you had them 2 crease lines, they're going to go smack dab in the center. And then I'm leaving about a 1/4 inch. Okay, just like that. If you want to, you can even take this and where that gusset is and where this 1.5 inch piece is, you could take this. What I like to do is just eyeball it there, and I'll push that down like that, And that will even help me to get centered. So, it's, now if you want to add tape, you can use double-sided tape. Like I said, I'm out, plus I don't really even use it in my albums hardly anymore. I glue. Now I do use it when I put my pages together, but if I don't have it, I'll glue it. And I glued that one that I showed you, and it's fine. I like the glue because then I have wiggle room. Once I put that tape down, I'm pretty much committed. Okay, make sure you glue it good. I mean, good enough. You don't want it dripping in glue. And especially around the corners and the edges, make sure I get that glue. Okay. Now, like I said, I'm going to do mine. Clean up any glue you have. Let's take this and put this like this. Well, I'm going to kind of eyeball it in there first. Okay? So I don't get glue all over. And if my head's in the way, I'm so sorry. And I'm lining up that crease mark with my crease in my book. And I'm kind of eyeballing it. If you want to get your ruler out measurement, you can. Measure it, you can. And then I'm going to take this, I'm going to fold this up. And I'm pushing that up against there. As I'm folding it, as I'm pushing this up, I'm holding that and pushing against it, okay? Now see, like, I've got glue, so I could take my time. I don't have to hurry. And then I'm just going to line it. I'm just going to push down my gussets. I'm going to work them down the bone folder. And I'm going to have this one here, and you can do the same thing, or you can just flop it over, because it should line up. If it's crooked a little bit, it'll be all right. Mine's a little off on that part, so I'm just gonna kind of give it a little tug. Try to straighten it up a bit. And I'm not pushing real hard again. I'm just very gently burnishing that paper. And now I will leave this sit to dry. And I'm still going to rub on them gussets, you know, if you're thinking about it, you're not doing something, and you walk by it, go, oh, let me give it another press down. And paper towel is kind of goofy. And you can fold them pins however you need to get that down. Now, if the pencil marks are going to bother you, you can always go in there and erase them. But like I said, it's going to get all covered up by paper and your pages. There you go. And that is your book. Now, I would let that dry just for a few minutes before you go folding it up, or you might get buckle marks where that is. And pencil. I am going to be using, now see, this is why don't erase or do anything to your book until it's dry, because now I've got eraser marks on it. I don't like orange erasers. I have a big white one somewhere. There we go. Okay. I like these big white ones. I got this one from the Dollar Tree, I think, or I got it in Swap. I don't remember. I've had it for a number of years. And I just go through, and if I have any black marks or dirty marks, I'll just take my eraser and rub over it, and it usually cleans it up pretty good. That's something in my chipboard. Okay, so there you guys go. That is your covers. And we can go ahead and fold that down. And now all you got left to do is decide which one's your front and which one's your back. So now you have 4 tabs in here. And you've got a 1/2 inch away from here, and a 1/2 inch away from here, and a 1/2 inch in between. So that way when you put your pages in, when your pages are laying in here, you know, let's pretend this is your page, and you put something, you know, bulky on it. Maybe you wanted to put a little flower on it or something, and it pokes up. Well, now when we put this in our page, you see that you got all kinds of room still. It's not going to squash it. So that's why I like to leave that 1/2 inch between my front and my back page. A lot of people start it and their thin starts right here. Well, you don't have nothing, no room to do anything even if it's just flat. I mean, by the time they start adding pictures and it builds up, it's not going to want to open or close anymore. So there you guys go. That is our album cover. And in part 2, we will be making the pages. My album covers, I don't do anything with, only this till I'm done. Because if I mark this, or, you know, if I have all kinds of embellishments and I'm trying to put my pages in, my book's rocking because I've got flowers and things all over, it's too hard. I leave mine flat till I'm completely done with my pages. They're in my book, then I do my covers. And if I would happen to mess this up, it's not that hard to cut a piece of paper and cover it up. Once you mess up your designer series paper and all that hard work you did putting flowers and pretties on it, and you rip it, or you get a glob of glue on it and you can't wipe it up now and it's smearing because the ink's bleeding, you're done for. You need to start all over. Okay, so there you guys go. That is your cover, and when we come back, we will be making the pages. Okay, so stay tuned for part 2 where we make pages. Alright guys, if you hit that like, subscribe, and share, and hit that notification bell and select all, you will be helping me out a great deal. And I will talk to y'all in part 2. Take care. Love y'all. Bye-bye.